Good
Yeah,
afternoon, Dr. Sunil.
good afternoon. Team members and all the students from IIM Rohtak, IIM Shillong, Naval Institute of Bhubaneswar. We have Vaibhav Goel with us. I have the pleasure of working with him for almost 6 years together. So Vaibhav,
Good afternoon, folks.
he's with Reliance for a long time. He is probably one of the best known HR innovation digitalization leader in the country. He shares platform with likes of Joe Bersin, Gary Hamel. So one of the most, I would say, well-known thought leader in the country at this point of time. He has worked, I will say, across Reliance. So he has got a wonderful career. He is also a graduate of IIT Kharagpur. So Vaibhav, over to you. So we have two questions which we will dwell upon today. One is if you can talk about how you have shaped your career. And I know you think about it, you reflect on it, and you have built it very consciously. So maybe we can dwell upon that part. And probably a second part question, which in fact I have added, I had not earlier discussed with you, is most of the interns have taken up the projects in the startup area. And since they are going to conceptualize it, and will leave it at the point from where it can be implemented. So what will be the key points which all of them should consider when conceptualizing a particular startup project? We have all the students. So why not all of you just say few lines, who you are and from which college you belong to and which project you are associated with.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you, Dr. Sunil.
Katyani, you want to start?
Sure, sir, I can go start with it. Well, I'm from IIM Rohtak, first year batch, and we have an e-com startup that we have an idea regarding that. And I'm from Kharagpur basically, and I have 9.5 years of work experience in IT operations.
Good. Who goes next?
Good morning. It's good afternoon now. Good afternoon, sir. So this is Nisha Beg, a second year student at IIM Rohtak. So I am currently working on the project on designing the transparent funding platforms for startups, and I am working it on alone as a team. And I am a fresher and a commerce graduate, and I have interned with Capgemini over the summers.
Thank you, Misha. Who goes next?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Sugandha Singh. I'm from Xavier University, Bhubaneswar. I'm a second year HR student. Before that, I have worked as a senior system engineer in Infosys for 42 months, and I have interned in Siemens for a third-party workforce project. Here, currently, I'm working on meta-analysis of employee happiness.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, this is Pooja Singekar. So we are from IIM Rohtak, and as first year students, we are working in a SIAM cold chain, and I'm an instrumentation engineer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Madhupriya. I'm a first year student at IIM Rohtak. I'm working with Pooja and others too on the same project on agriculture cold chains, and I have an experience of 1 year at Accenture as a software developer.
So nice to have Katyani, Misha, Sugandha, Pooja, and Madhu, all of you here, and of course Mindstream Consulting partners and professionals. I think the two questions that Dr. Sunil has posed, how I have been shaping my career, how it's going, and what factors led to some of the pluses and some factors that one can take, in terms of what can may adversely affect sometimes. It's a broad question. It's a very, very wide question, and we continue to curate our strategies in terms of career, and I'll get into a bit of deep. Once I talk about myself, I would actually love to interact with the young folks and understand that on some parameters, some aspects, what is their thinking as well, and maybe help shape their perspectives, because there's no one single formula in life. And there are only some broad principles, and there can be some, I would say, some wisdom that you can carry, and how situations come along your life is something that you have to be solid on those bedrock of those principles, and you have to continue to evolve your wisdom. The second question is also very interesting, which is about some of you working on some kind of a product or doing some project with the startups. Can certainly definitely add my perspective to it, because I've been spending the last 3 years into very similar concept to implement kind of projects, and trying to shape how the future can evolve, especially in the space of HR, people and organization. And had some fair bit of understanding how things, sometimes you plan things and they go as per plan, and sometimes they don't go as per your plan. So there are many, many factors which kind of one can take into account. So first, talking about my career, let me briefly introduce myself. I'm Vaibhav Goel, and I have been with Alliance for almost 9+ years now. And prior to that, I was heading HR for an investment banking and IT startup in Bangalore. And prior to that, I was heading HR for one of the Dalmia Group companies based in NCR. And before that, I started my career with Vedanta Group as one of the young management trainees in a normal course of corporate HR. I did my post-graduation from IIT Kharagpur, and I did my engineering from Chandigarh, Punjab Engineering College. I think there are two aspects which I would really precipitate. I have been very consistent about how I think I handle it and what are my priorities. And I think they continue to remain very solid principles with respect to my career. First and the foremost is, whom do I work with, and who is going to be my manager and my boss. That's the most important aspect that I've always been very, very particular about in my career. And sometimes you get some flexibility, sometimes you don't get that flexibility. But I think continue to find the right manager who can be a coach, who can be a mentor, to whom you can really look forward to and look up to, can gain from his or her experience, is something that I think shapes us a lot more than anything else. Having said that, it doesn't mean that everybody gets a great manager and everybody gets a great mentor or coach right in the beginning of the career. And I would say that in the first couple of years, whom you work with really shapes your professional personality a lot. So continue to look for that, and I think whenever I got my opportunity or chance, I prioritized this factor over every other factor, be it compensation, be it the company, be it brand name, or even the project. A lot of people go after role. So if I really talk about a lot of management trainees that I interact with in the Alliance as well as otherwise, you would hear a lot of conversations about the role, that I want to do this role, I want to do this kind of work and that kind of work and so on. But believe me, roles change very fast. And most of the times it may not be well structured as well, that the role that you perceive or what is really communicated, it continues beyond 6 months, 12 months or so on. And then you want changes. So role is something which you have to take, and there's almost a concept which is emerging now in the future of HR, which is the fluid work. So the jobs are kind of going to go away or getting less important, and the work is getting more and more fluid. So you can't really base your career choices on particular role, particular position, or particular even project. But yeah, how you perform in a particular environment is going to depend a lot on your manager, whether the manager is really helping you curate your experiences, the manager is giving you some great guidance, the manager has a lot of a variety of experience through which he can really share a lot of wisdom with you, and the manager gives you your space for your creativity and your own ways of doing things. These are the factors which are going to be more important. The second aspect, of course, comes the work. What kind of work? So more than the job, I think jobs are slightly overrated. It's the projects and the nature of work that you end up doing. It's more important. You'll find across companies, pardon me, you find across companies that similar job titles, similar job roles, but the actual work that happens within those jobs and those roles can be very, very different. So there's no one single framework for jobs across companies, even within the same sector, even within the same geography. So what really matters is the nature of work, the nature of projects that you're going to work on. Here I can share a couple of things which really helps me is that it has to be a little bit driven by your own personalities and style. What motivates you? What's something you enjoy doing more? And I think the motivation and the enjoyment are two sides of the same coin. In the sense that if you're not enjoying, you will not be motivated. And if you really want to be motivated, a lot of us feel as young people when we're coming out fresh out of college that, yeah, I want to be motivated to do something. But you can't get motivated if you're not really enjoying doing something. So you have to really understand that what kind of work really makes you tick, what gives you fun, what gives you sustainability. What kind of job is something that you're doing on a daily basis? You don't feel your energy sapped. You feel, okay, your energy is still intact, or you are actually getting energized. You'll find that some of the hobbies that you do, some of the work that you really love to do, or sometimes pro bono projects you do, you may not be getting paid to do any of that stuff. In fact, there may not be any professional recognition. You can't add a badge or a certificate to yourself if you do those things. But what you find is that after doing that, you feel more energized, you are more charged. And though it's very easy to say, I acknowledge it's not very easy to find. But what I would suggest is there's some basic tenets of the work that you can see. Now, some people really enjoy working with many other people. So I wouldn't get into these stereotype words like, extroverts and introverts. I think they're very, very broad terms. There are a lot of shades within each of those terms. But sometimes you really like that, okay, if I get to interact new people, and then I try to understand them, and then I try to work with them. That could be something that you can be looking into your nature of work. Some people are very good at solving very critical, analytical problem statements, and they're fine if they are interacting with the same set of people for weeks, for months. And some people are very good at, program managing aspects, and they feel like, okay, you give me a project and I'll manage it well. Some people are very good at trying to do abstract thinking or conceptualizing. So then you look for that nature of work. And some people are very good at bringing operational quality assurance. So your day-to-day work, even if it is of repetitive nature, but it's happening and you are making sure you're slowly improving it. You're making sure that things are working absolutely fine. And you can manage a lot of people who are doing transactional work. So all those kind of jobs are possible. They all do exist. And so it's very important for us to figure out for yourself what really makes you tick day after day, what can give you more sustained momentum. And some people, I find that they are not very comfortable if too many changes are happening, and some people are very comfortable if changes happen. In fact, they're not happy if change is not happening. So we can't really put them into, can't put a round peg in a square hole here. So you have to really find for yourself what kind of work makes you tick. And then accordingly, you look for work for the projects and the kind of roles. But like I said, the first and the foremost comes the mentor, the boss, the manager, the coach. And the second comes the nature of work. Now, I would say any one of you can ask me that why would I prioritize the manager, the coach, and the mentor above the role or the project? It's simply because you don't have all the answers. You'll face situations where you will need guidance. I can say by my own experience that I didn't know myself very well 15 years, 16 years back when I started my career. And there were some very wise people who could actually see me, observe me, see what good I'm doing, what wrong I'm doing, and actually help me understand me better. And I think those are the things that have stayed with me for the last 15 years. If I tell you guys the project that I was doing 15, 16 years back, it would sound like exactly like even after 15, 16 years, something like that I'm still doing. So the project will sound very similar. It is like performance management digitization. I did 16 years back. And I did a pan-India hiring automation. I wouldn't call it automation. Hiring using technology, doing pan-India hiring simultaneously. It was really moving from paper pen exercise to a digital exercise. We're still doing those things because technology is emerging, the new ways that you can do, better efficiencies you can get, better quality output that you can get. So those things are still continuing. So more than the nature of the work, what has stayed with me is actually the learnings, the insights, and the wisdom that I could borrow and extract from my manager. And here I would always love to share this thought that if I work with a really good manager who is ready to share his learning and wisdom with me, and my manager was somebody who had 30 years experience, and I gained 1 year experience working closely with him. So let me ask you a question. After 1 year, what is my experience? So if I ask Misha, what should be my total experience after working with somebody who had 30 years experience?
So it would depend upon how much you are actually able to extract out of him.
Yeah, but
He
what
has
should be
30
my
years
target?
of experience. Your target should be to gain whole of his 30 years of experience essence. What he has actually
Right.
learned in that.
Absolutely. So it is his 30 years plus his 1 year more, which is 31, plus my 1 year, which is 32 years. So while it may sound very crazy, but believe me, if you think like that, it will make a huge, huge, huge difference. Now, how do you make that happen? So I'm talking about something which can be very impractical, but you do that by asking a lot of questions. Now, you don't just take it anything like that. You don't do things just because somebody is telling you to do. You don't do process because the process is laid out just like that. So, if you are curious and you have a knack of asking questions, and of course, you can't ask questions by offending people. So there's a way of asking questions at the right time. Sometimes you have to do what you don't believe in and earn the right to ask questions. But the main thing is, how do you really ask questions and how do you extract that wisdom? So the only way you can extract wisdom by learned people is asking them questions. So the first couple of years, you have to ask as many questions, keep getting into conversations, variety of conversations, keep testing various thoughts, paradigms, frameworks, and see that what are the different perspectives that you can gather. By saying that, I also want to caution you that you should not be like getting into arguments. You should not be getting into unnecessary debates. And those conversations have to be with a lot of humility and with a mindset to learn. You should not be sounding just to prove your point, or you should not be sounding like over smart. So there's a way to handle these conversations, and especially with senior people. But the more you get involved into those kind of conversations, apart from the work that you do, you will you'll get more and more extract. And then there are peers. So there are a lot of peers. They come with 20 years, 30 years, 15 years plus experience. And as you are getting this information, you also need to figure out a way to filter out. People will share their ways of doing things, their understanding, their right and wrong. Now you have to gather information, but be very cautious what you really absorb. So it's up to you, but you just can't blindly take everything. And also make sure that there will be a lot of success stories you'll hear. So whenever you will talk to people, they will talk about 9 success stories and only 1 failure story. Even one, if somebody talks about, that's fantastic. But the thing is, even if those success stories are true, there's no success formula can be repeated. So you understand things, those are different times, those are different contexts, those are different challenges, so they were able to do things. A lot of factors converged for things to happen, but it doesn't mean that they themselves can repeat it. It's very difficult. It's almost next to impossible because situations don't remain the same. So as much you can absorb, that is really going to help you quite a lot. And this has to flow into your nature of work as well. When you're doing for your first job, your first role, your first work, I would say give double the time that you can give, because the biggest benefit you have at this age is that you have time, you have more time. And believe me when I say that, as you will grow older and older, you will have less and less time. There's only one thing that God has uniformly given to everybody in this planet, and that is time. Everybody has 24 hours. I am not counting in terms of how many years you live, but on a daily basis, everybody is got 24 hours. And probably most of you are in early 20s or mid 20s, the college people, maybe late 20s. I think another 5 years to 10 years, you can give the maximum time of your life. And as you'll get into new phases of life, your ability to give time to yourself and to your work is gonna reduce and reduce. So give more and more time, not just stick to your kind of regular routine. And when I say give your time, it's not about doing the same stuff. It's like trying to do a lot more. Trying to do a variety of things. In the first couple of years, if you can do 3 or 4 different variety of projects in different variety of context, that's the biggest value that you can add to yourself. And there's a very strong neuroscience behind it. I'm not just talking from my own experience. Research is now coming out very strongly. In fact, if you want, you can read this book called Range by David Epstein. It's one of the books which is really shaking up the long-held beliefs and scientific, myths, is what he's calling, and I would agree with him, is that, specialization is extremely overrated. So if you want to do, the world is moving so fast that you need more creativity, you need more innovation, you need more and better ways of doing things. And what is coming out very clearly, that people who have variety of experiences and ranges of experiences are proving to be much better at giving more creative and innovative solutions. In fact, a research of some thousands of scientists and researchers, and some of them being Nobel laureates, they found that there's no correlation between number of years of experience and their highest achievement as a scientist or as a researcher. Sometimes it happened just a couple of years into research and nothing for the next 60 years. And sometimes it happened, somebody is being for 60 years into research and then they discovered things. So there's a range of factors which plays, but the only piece that most people, they're having in common is the truly breakthrough, innovative things got done when there is range, when there is a variety in experience, in knowledge, in understanding. So you may get into deep in a couple of areas, but make sure that you keep also working on the spread, on the breadth. And that's what I mean, when you give more time to your work, you have to, the extra time that you get, you have to kind of give yourself spread. Give yourself range to variety of things, variety of context, different type of people. And I'm not just talking about MBA. MBA is actually still one area. So you can talk to scientists, you can try to do something with even painting. So the perspectives that you will gather over the next few years is something that's gonna give you capabilities that are gonna support you for the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life. I can literally vouch that to what David Epstein is saying, because there's a certain kind of range I have before I really got into HR, and it's all coming to help me out actually even today. And I find some of my strengths are just because I have that kind of variety of experience from the non-traditional experiences.
It's quite experience hearing you. You talked about the role of the manager, the mentor, the coach, how the job is overrated and it's more about the project. You talked about how can we extract within a year of experience more than that. You talked about that how the whole experience thing is overrated and how you can, the whole concept of the range which you talked about, how you can expand your range. That's wonderful. I believe that it must be useful for all the people listening. I think it's that we have covered almost every aspect of what involves in terms of the career shaping. So maybe just to give you a pause in terms of speaking, what I will ask all the students here is that if before you attempt the second question, if they have any observation, any particular questions, so that it becomes both way kind of communication. Anything you would like to ask Vaibhav? Anyone?
Yeah, feel free.
Yes, sir. I have a question. Sir, at this time, when you mentioned how pertinent it is to start, the first few years of your work experience with an organization that you really, maybe not the organization, maybe the people that you want to really believe in, and because those are really important in shaping you as an individual. So, how you suggest that we go about it, seeing the current times that we are facing in terms of whether, because see, when we join an organization, we really don't know as a fresher that what kind of work are we going to do. So it should align with our personality or our professional expertise, or maybe the area I want to really work in. How should we go about it as a fresher?
Yeah, so if I have an answer to that, I would be a multimillionaire today. So the fact is, you rightly pointed out, Sugandha, it depends a lot of unknowns. And I think I can advise just a couple of things that we can try. And I cannot guarantee that people will figure that out. When I look back, I would say I was almost lucky. One thing is that you have to create multiple options, and to do creating options is something you have to really work and research and find out more and more information. That's the only key. If I have to give one principle, that's what it is. Let me explain what I mean. So let's say, see, today in college, and for many right reasons, most of you guys focus on trying to get a job. And maybe that's very important. Yes, it is, but it's more psychologically important than anything else. So once you are able to crack that, or once you've got something, then I would say don't rest. Try to find out who are the people in that ecosystem. And today you've got platforms that you can find so much of information. And there's no harm in trying to find other job alternatives or other project alternatives, different type of work. One of the things that I definitely did, and if I share very concrete examples. So in my engineering, and I'm sure even in today's engineering curriculum, you would have two projects at least. That's what you need to do, right? In my engineering, I did 5 different kind of projects, all 5 very different organizations. Right from a very big plant, steel plant, to Baba Atomic Research Center, to a private company, to R&D, to a practical supply chain. And it gave me, before I was really standing at a point where I had to make a decision, you can practically say that I was very well exposed, and a lot of information was available to me that, okay, how do these areas really work? What does they look like? And I could meet and talk to people because I worked in those environments with people who spent 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, HODs. And I could almost, fast forward into the future and see that, okay, this is how it is if I spend 20 years in this place. And so you arm yourself with lots of practical information, and you do that by doing your research, your homework, and into getting in touch with people, talking to people. Even if you explore your own personal network, I'm sure in India, we are like usually large families. You'll find your cousins, your uncles and aunties and other people who may have spent some time in corporates. They could give you some wonderful insights. So you'll have to do your research. There's no alternative to it. So the second piece is, so first you narrow down, okay, this is the kind of project, this is the kind of company, this is the kind of work. Even if you don't have an answer to that. So I don't think the secret lies in trying to arrive at an answer. Okay, this is the fit to me. No, you would not get that answer. Let me tell you upfront. But the thing is, you are getting yourself armed with information that when something comes to you, you'll get an answer within yourself. Yeah, this is something which looks great to me. And I feel motivated to try it. And they are gonna be things which you'll see and you'll almost instinctively find that, no, this is not gonna work out. I know this is not something I want. Now, but those inner voices that you will get are not gonna be without basis, because your mind is already primed with so much of information that these inner voices are gonna be pretty much intelligent inner voices. And even gut feel literally today has a meaning of intelligence, and you can research on Google about it. So now the second point is, how do I get a great mentor? Even if you enter into a company, you have to network. Usually today's companies are large companies, and you find some great fantastic people in companies. So you don't have to stop yourself to just a reporting manager. All you have to make sure is that your reporting manager is secure enough to let you explore. And then you can connect with mentors within the company. You can find people who are extremely experienced, who love to coach. And at the same point of time, you can have a project manager, a different mentor, and a different coach. Now, the time when I started my career, you don't really used to think that, okay, you can interact with more than a couple of people, right? But today it's time like everybody's comfortable. You can actually be learning from 5 senior leaders at the same time. So the answer does not lie in getting the perfect fit. You will never figure that out. In fact, you only figure that out more retrospectively. The answer lies in creating more options. And to create more options, you have to do your research and you have to find alternatives. Does that help?
Any other question?
Yes, I have a question. Just now you said that for exploring, managers should be secure enough. So how do you manage with an insecure manager?
Okay, so, well, the short answer is, I don't think we have the time, wherewithal, and the capability to change personalities of our managers. So the short answer is, you can't really change your manager. His insecurities could be because of a variety of reasons, and we may never figure out what's really the problem is. So if you really get an insecure manager and you find that you're feeling claustrophobic working under a certain manager, please get out of that place. Don't waste your time. And the question at that point of time is that sometimes we get bogged down by money or a title or a good brand name of a company, and we think, oh, okay, these are things. So you have to be really clear what is the most important priority. And in the first few years of your career, I think the most important priority is getting this exposure, getting this learning. I have literally done a small comp study in which I've seen over 10 years, everything gets equalizes. You'll find fast trackers in the first 3-5 years, they'll go like Zoom. And then you'll see for some reason they start plateauing. And you'll find in the first 3-5 years, some people are going very slow and suddenly they take a couple of jumps and then they zoom up. And if you really see in 10 years, they would have like equalized, plus minus not much. And I'm not talking here strictly the trailblazers. There's always people who really, are exceptions, but those are rarities. And the only advice there I would give is focus on the learning. And the second piece is, money is important. People focus a lot on earning the money and not in the right way of use of money. So, frankly, all of you belonging to good institutes will sooner or later find good paying jobs. and they're gonna give you sufficient quality of life. But for the first 5 years, focus upon a great manager and getting good manager who can give you an opportunity to get a lot of exposure and a lot of learning.
Thank you, Vaibhav. That was quite an insight. One last question, and then we'll move to the second question.
Sir, I had a question. This is a pretty common question, but I have this doubt forever in my mind. So I'm a pretty fresher, and I do not have any prior interaction with corporate sector at all. So what I've observed is that, like we say that we have to do peer networking. So in here, the competition actually plays an inherent role. You cannot get close to your peers because they are your competitors itself. So I just took one point from your own that what you taught, that maybe we can actually try to get close to people by success stories rather than going for their interests. Because the first advice that I got was that you have to actually catch up with people by playing to their interests. Like if they watch sports, you actually do the research on the what sports they are watching and try to interact with them and form a relationship with them as a friend, and then get to know that what you want to know from them. So that's a pretty lengthy process and pretty exhausting because you cannot have that much of interest.
Misha, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so maybe I didn't get your question very clearly. You're saying you're a fresher and you want to understand how you can overcome that in terms of other people who have more experience. Is that your question?
No, sir. I just want to know that how do we network with our peers? Like in an MBA batch,
Peers.
if I want to network with my peers, they are all my competitors in a sense. Why would they want to give me information?
Right. So I think the key point here, Misha, is when I say network, it's not within the college just. It is actually more outside the college. It is in your prospective workplaces. It is going to be your prospective areas of work. So don't limit yourself just to the college. I don't think that's really gonna give you the kind of returns that you are wanting. Your peer network in college is going to give you different kind of benefits. So you'll have good friends, there'll be knowledge sharing, there's all those kind of things. But yeah, I think it's a very competitive environment usually in a college. And in that competitive environment, people can feel a little bit, okay, if I share this information, it's like less resources, more people wanting those resources. So that kind of a scenario is always felt. So try to work on that by trying to create network beyond college. So that's my first answer. And the second is, I think even though you didn't ask, but you touched upon your point of being a fresher. So which signals me that somewhere in the mind it feels that, okay, I don't have the experience and I'm a fresher. So is that really a limitation? It's not a limitation that you can't overcome. And for you to overcome that limitation, all I can advise is improving your knowledge and trying to overcome others' experience by more reading and more focused reading and getting better insights by talking to the practitioners of that area. So I have seen few people that sometimes they are freshers, but they are so well researched and well read that they sound like almost like 10 years of experienced people. And they come so well prepared. And what they lack by experience, they try to learn from other people's experience. And it only happens by your own reading, your own research, and then by talking to practitioners in that field. And so you'll have to a little bit work extra. So there's no doubt. It's like if somebody is playing a game for 2 years and you just started, of course, you will not have the muscles to support that, in the physical game at least. But don't see that as a gap. See it as a fresher. You always have an opportunity to ask some more fundamental questions. And there's a complete psychology behind it. So you can ask some of the basic fundamental questions and actually find new perspectives which many experienced people may have missed out. So when you're doing this extra reading and extra research and talking to practitioners, do it with an open mind, with curiosity, with asking some basic questions. And if that were not true, you would not found some of the great startups happening by relatively much inexperienced people, while they are 20, 30 years experienced people working in the industry, right? And it happens because it's their inexperience in that area, but coupled with curiosity and coupled with ability to do hard work, can actually give them better and fresher perspectives than a lot of experienced people. And if you show that curiosity and that fresh perspective in some of your interactions with experienced senior leaders, that's exactly what they're looking at freshers when they're wanting to have freshers and sometimes give them an edge over experienced people.
Thank you, Vaibhav. And Mr. This is the one piece which I always used to discuss with Vaibhav, is that at times experience is your biggest weakness. So that also happens. And there are many startups which he talked about, is founded by the people who didn't knew. At times knowledge is your biggest enemy. So we'll now move on to the second question.
In fact, if you read this book, Range, this is the exact point he keeps repeating.
Thank you.
Okay,
so
the second question is about product and startup, right?
Yes.
So I'll spend 5 minutes on the conceptualization piece. I think when we say conceptualization, it is definitely a particular abstract skill that some people do have and some people don't have that great. But I think the one thing that I would suggest to anybody who's trying to come up with a new product or a new concept is to first experience and understand the need. So if you're not done something by yourself and you're not trying to do it, or you're not experience the need or the lack of it, or you may come up with the idea, but to convert an idea into a proper concept and then take it to some feasibility level, there are going to be pieces that you're going to miss out. Now, how do you do that? So there's a proper framework now called design thinking, and I think it's a household term. Everybody's kind of using it, design thinking. But I don't think still many people actually do it properly. So in design thinking, the first step is actually trying to understand who is the real customer and who's going to use it, whose pain point it's going to address. Once you find out who, and then you have to actually engage with those people. Try to live that problem. And if you try to live that problem, then you start getting the empathy that is really required. And it is not just by one or two interactions you will get and really understand what's the problem statement you're trying to solve, what are the pain points, and how you're going to solve it. Now, what that experience is going to give you is when you come up with the solution and you're trying to get new concepts and solutions, you will realize that, okay, this is going to work, this is not going to work. But the second part of this, which is even more important, is what people call as agile. Now, that's again a second household term, everybody talk about it. But the real thing about agile is that you have to have the ability of whatever you're trying to do, try it with the right customer, get the feedback and be able to improve it and getting that cycle right. So this process of empathy-based design thinking, so getting into the problem statement, experiencing it yourself, talking to similar, actually your potential customers, and getting your problem statement right and the solution concept right. And the second process is this agile process. These two processes are like meta processes. They sit on top of any product, any problem statement, anything that you're trying to do. Because in the first 2 or 3 attempts, you'll not get it right. Nobody has got it right. And every time they fail or they have a gap, they realize, okay, what they missed out. But the success comes not because they failed, not because they missed something out. The success comes because they have an ability to fix that quickly and come back again. So it is this process of fixing back and coming back, and then once you fix one problem, you find another problem, then you find another problem. And in 3 to 5 loops, you will get somewhere, actually. Before that, I don't think you will get anywhere. So that is the stage where you can say, okay, now my concept seems to be working. So these are the 2 words I'll ask all of you to really, really get into your head and understand the process, how these things happen, not just by trying to read about it. Frankly, reading doesn't give you more than 10% of learning. There's a proper research, and you have to, there's a whole pedagogy of learning science behind it, how you go from 10% to 70, 80% of learning, and that happens by experimentation, by doing. So design thinking, which is empathy at the heart of it, and agile process. These are the 2 things, if you understand very well, you will start coming up with, you will find that actually you become a serial innovator then. So, people don't become serial innovator because they're just too creative, right? They don't become serial innovators or entrepreneurs, may not be the most creative guys. They're not the people who keep finding problems in their life. So they're not like repeatedly facing new and new problems and then they're solving it. It doesn't happen like that. So you'll find serial innovators and entrepreneurs actually perfect these 2 processes. Then whatever excites them, they work in that area following these processes. And you'll find every 3 to 5 years they can churn out something.
So Vaibhav, you again talked very lucidly about this question. The whole thing around who is the customer, the whole process about agile and design thinking, how it sits together, I'll say. And it's not about being creative, but following these 2 processes. So I think it makes sense completely. And I hope, and this is something which we talked about in the morning session as well, the do's of the project. My last point was that you have to follow design thinking. You have to understand who is the customer. And if you're not doing that, then you will not come out with a product idea which will actually succeed in the real life, in the real marketplace. And that's something which came out from the Vaibhav as well. So any questions now is open to everyone. You can ask questions on what he spoke for the first question as well as for second questions. Over to all of you.
Yeah, feel free.
Just a quick question, sir. You talked about design thinking, and I have read about it, and I have even done a workshop. In that, one thing I couldn't understand is that when we move from empathy sessions to ideation sessions, one of the things that was told to us is don't think about normal ideas, make your ideas wild in all the processes, including brain dumping and brainstorming, brain walking. So sometimes I was confused in that entire workshop that there are some things that are, if you really think out of the box about them, you can't really get a solution towards it. And maybe sometimes out of the box things doesn't happen. So how to, balance between what is being required and what are the expectations in terms of those processes?
I would try to articulate what you're trying to ask. So first of all, in design thinking, there are, I think, 3 very good processes. There are 3 different processes of doing design thinking. And these are techniques and tools that they teach in workshop, how you can actually apply these processes. In terms of when they say that, okay, think more wild ideas or think out of the box, what does it really mean? I'll make it very simple. All of you must have heard about this example that what is this? You can see it on the screen. What am I holding right now?
It's a pen.
It's a pen, right? Our brains are wired and taught that this is a pen. And pen is for what?
For writing, for expressing our ideas and
For writing. Right. That's also what is taught to us, right?
Yeah.
So our brains are, for every problem, for every solution, our brain has a set pattern. When we say think out of the box, what it means is try to break that pattern. And the example that you must have always come across, that okay, in the interview you are asked, give me 10 uses to how you will sell this pen. That question and that example is nothing but how differently can you think? How much can you break the pattern? And there's some exercises which of lateral thinking, which helps you to kind of think more laterally, that break those patterns. There are real things in our brain. Our brain is like physically wired to, every time we see this, we are like programmed to call it a pen. If I show this, somebody may call it power. Can I call this power?
Yes. For a writer, for power.
Why only for a writer? See, that's the pattern. You think of pen when you think of a writer.
Yeah.
It's power of a common man. It's power for a cartoonist. It's power for an illiterate person. So our brain, our brain has evolved in a certain way that we relate everything and we fix those patterns. And every time we think of it, we go down the same pattern. This is neuroscience. But what happens, I talked in the beginning that you take variety of experiences. What does that do? It gives your brain flexibility to think new patterns. Now apply this to design thinking. So when you are trying to solve a problem, 9 out of 10 people would come up with very similar solutions. They would almost think like a group think. Now what those tools and techniques in design thinking help you do is break those patterns, think differently. What else could be done? It's like if you go to Africa and you're meeting a tribal group and they have never seen any kind of such a solution, how would they think? They have no pattern to rely upon. They have no experience to rely upon. So this is what really those tools and techniques help you do. And you need these tools and techniques because this is real brain issue. And it's not something bad about our brains. We could do this video collaboration today because there's so many things. Our brain has become efficient doing things on a repeated pattern basis. So, but when you want something new to be done, then how do you break the pattern of your thinking? And that's where lateral thinking exercises, out-of-the-box thinking exercises, they become handy. And they become very important tools in design thinking to figure out new concepts, new solutions for the same problem statements.
So can you suggest some good read on design
Makes sense?
thinking?
Yeah.
A good read or maybe a course that we could approach for design thinking?
Yeah, why do you need a course? Why do we think to learn something we need a course? Courses were invented when? A few decades back.
Yeah.
Learning started when? Millions of years ago. So all I would suggest is pick up a project. Say I'm going to do design thinking project. Pick up a real project. And read in the morning, apply it in the evening. There's no better course than that. Yeah. And when you say real read, I can recommend some books, but there's no book on design thinking. There's a simple framework. Google is very good. information tool, just go there. You'll find so many good PDFs, PPTs, links, blogs. Read few and find your own best, what you read and you really understand well. But what matters is, are you applying it in the evening? Otherwise, in 48 hours, I guarantee you the best read you'll forget.
True.
Vaibhav, thanks a lot for accepting this invite. I think that this must be extremely useful for all of you in terms of how you are going to take up your project. And if I have to say the answer which Vaibhav gave, probably one way to look at it is that understand your biases and break that pattern. And biases are what? Those wirings which Vaibhav is talking about. That I may not even know that which side of the bed every day I wake up. I may not have been noticed. So that's it. It's kind of as invisible as that. And that's what is meant by the wild thinking. That first of all, you get aware about those networkings which you already have in your brain, and then break it. Because unless until you know that how you think, you cannot break it. And that is what is meant by that wild thinking. So, Vaibhav, for all of us, are extremely thankful. Wish you lots of health and happiness in coming days. It's tough times. So from all the students, the Mindstream team, we thank you for your session. It was very useful and I think very insightful. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Vaibhav.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil, and all of you guys must know that I can't say no to a request from Dr. Sunil. He has not just been my colleague, but a mentor in many ways, and I always cherish interacting with him. And all the best to all of you, and I think there's bright future for all of you. Don't worry about this pandemic. The younger you are, the better it is for you in terms of these pandemic times. You get longer window to adapt, and the best thing is be safe for probably a year. Give a lot of importance to your friends and families, and then the work is always going to be there in your life.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.